Ladies and gentlemen, the radio audience, welcome to the Doodlin Lounge. And listen, my teeth have just been new, and they're just put in. I just had my dentist, I squeezed my dentist out of a tube and put him on the crest of my bridge.
Now, who are you? Who are you?
Who am I? I am one who is not known chronologically as one who has contributed financially to the stability of an organization that finds itself in the doldrums of despair. My name is Professor Irwin Corey, the world's foremost authority.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for that, Professor Irwin Corey. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my Doodlin Lounge. Pete Fallico here, host and master of ceremonies. And as Jack MacDuff would say, yeah, we got a good one for you. Bill Callanan out of Las Vegas is our special guest in this episode of the Doodlin Lounge. We're listening to Bill in the background right now, playing a little 1 in 8 from the Jack MacDuff book. He's got with him on this show guitarist Vinnie Correo out of New Jersey, Paul Testa on drums, and the one and only Jerry Weldon on tenor saxophone. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Bill Callanan.
This is Jack McDuff with you at the Doodlin Lounge.
Yeah, that's the voice of Jack McDuff himself. We heard one from his book played by our guest here in the Doodlin Lounge, Bill Callanan. That was called 1 in 8. Now we're going to hear Bill play an original dedicated to Jack himself. This is called Not Enough MacDuff from Bill Callanan's release, Resurrection from the Pits. Here we go. All right, there's a tune called Not Enough Macduff from our guest here in the Doodlin Lounge, Mr. Bill Callanan. Bill, you've got to tell us about the origins of Resurrection from the Pits. In fact, you've got to tell us the whole story. This is the first chance we've had, officially in my Doodlin Lounge to share your music and your conversation.
Well, thank you, Pete. Resurrection from the Pits is a reference to my career here in Las Vegas. So I came here in 1967, and I started working in the lounges and then in the orchestra pits, and I've been doing it since then, and I'm still working in the pits. And about 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to go back to my roots, that I really enjoyed playing the B3. I'm a B3 player, and that's it. And so I decided to get back into it again, and I started playing around Vegas here with different people, and then I went back east about 3 years ago and decided to record with my old friend Vinny Correo, who's a great guitar player. We grew up together, and he's one of the reasons I play the B3. And my drummer Paul Testa from Vegas happened to be coming back at the same time, and so Vinny called up Jerry Weldon.
Jerry Weldon.
Oh, Jerry Weldon, what a wonderful... I had never met him, and he came down to South Jersey from New York, and met him in the driveway, and 3 hours later we had 10 pieces of music in the can.
Oh, I know.
It was amazing. I never met the guy, and we just started playing, and it just clicked,
I can imagine, he comes out of that Lionel Hampton band, and the showmanship is there. He's got it all on that tenor saxophone, and I can see you immediately connecting with him,
It was amazing. I had a couple of friends that were in the booth listening to this thing as we were recording it, and they were going berserk. They said this was the best thing they ever heard me play on with the group, And I'm really proud of that thing. It's a great piece of music.
Yeah, and I guess it's like riding a bike. When you got in that groove with Paul and Vinny Correo, you locked right in like you did 30, 40 years ago.
Exactly, and it wasn't even, you didn't have to think about it. We just started playing, and it just gelled immediately, and we knew that we were doing something special together. That it was really fun. I had the best one of my life.
There's Bill and the fellas with Talkin' About JC, again from their Resurrection from the Pits CD. Jerry Weldon, Vinnie Correo, and drummer Paul Testa. Now, when Bill Callanan came out from New Jersey to Las Vegas in 1967, he came with a friend, Roy James, a drummer. And along with other musicians that gathered together, like Jimmy Hassel, the fellas played organ gigs as much as they could. Here's a self-produced tape Bill put together while they were playing at the Moulin Rouge, late 60s, early 70s. This is Spinning Wheel with Jimmy Hassel on vocals, Bill Callanan and the fellas back in the day.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel got to go round. Talking about your troubles, it's crying sin. Catch a peanut pony, let your spinning wheel spin. You got no money, you got no home. Spinning wheel, you got to be all alone. Talking about your troubles, you're never gonna learn. Catch a peanut pony, let your spinning wheel turn. Did you find a directing sign on the straight and narrow highway? Would you find a reflecting sign? You just gotta let it shine within your eyes and show you the colors that are real. You got no money, no, you got no home. Spinning wheel, you got to be all alone. Talking about your troubles, you're never gonna learn. I catch a peanut pony, just spin a wheel turn, yeah. Troubles, you're never gonna learn. Catch a painted pony, let your spinning wheel turn. Hey! What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, you got to go round. Talking about your troubles, it's a crying shame. Catch a peanut pony, let your spinning wheel go to fame. You're talking about your money, you're never gonna learn. Spinning wheel, you got to be all alone. Talking about your troubles, you're never gonna learn. Catch a peanut pony, let your spinning wheel turn. 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 Spinning wheel.
talking with Bill Callanan here in the Doodlin Lounge. Now, you came out from New Jersey in 1967. Did you bring an instrument with you, or were you just looking for a job?
No, I came out from New Jersey. I was playing back in New Jersey. Of course, I don't know if you know my history, but I was with Joey D and the Starlighters for quite a while. And then I left them, because I wanted to play the organ, do the jazz thing. And I started doing the Chitlin circuit. My first trio was Morris Dow on guitar and Jackie Mills. And both those gentlemen were the original trio with Jimmy McGriff. They both recorded I Got a Woman and all those hits that Jimmy had back in those days. So I worked with them, and then I was on the road doing the Chitlin circuit, not making any money, and then I got an offer to come out to Vegas to work at the Desert Inn, and for a lot of money. So there wasn't any doubt I had to do it. So I came out to Vegas, and that kind of officially ended my jazz career for a long time. But it started another career that kept me going through all these years. And I was lucky I was trained, I could read, and I learned how to sight read very well. And so I worked in the lounges, and then I went into the main room, and then I wound up being the band leader at the Stardust Hotel. God, I was conducting the orchestra for the Lido show.
Wow.
And I did that. I conducted for Siegfried and Roy, and then I also worked with the Relief Band, which was the band that the regular house bands had. They worked 6 nights a week, and then they had the 7th night off. And the 7th night, the Relief Band would come in, and anytime they had a call for organ, I would be the first call. So I did that for many years too.
So it wasn't just a piano gig. I mean, you didn't come out as a pianist. You came out as both organist and pianist.
No, I actually came out there as an organist. I brought the B3 out with me, and the thing is, in the lounges out there at that time, when you hire an organ player who can play the bass, they didn't have to hire a bass player. So I wound up, I was tripling it. I was working in the afternoon, working a night shift. It was incredible. And then around 1972, the lounges kind of slowed down and closed down. So I decided, well, I got to get into the main room. So I took the first job I could, which was the Lido show, and I wound up spending many years doing that.
Yeah, I can imagine. You had to shift gears. Well, you know, the rumor was at some point music has left Vegas. You know, it just wasn't like the old days of the Louis Prima lounges. You know.
No, it wasn't. In 1972, the lounges really started shutting down. That's when the corporations started taking over, and it changed the whole thing, and the whole venue changed. You know, because you had the mob in there, and they knew how to treat people, and they knew how to entertain them, and the corporations had a completely different outlook on how to run a casino. So that was the demise of the lounges and the beginning of tape music.
And hence we have the resurrection from the pits. Let's go back to that CD with Bill Callanan at the Hammond organ. This is an original piece called Once in a Mile. We're listening to the voice of Bill Callanan here in the Doodlin Lounge. Hey, Bill Callanan, tell us a little bit about, now you never lose your roots, you never forget where you came from. While you were making it in Las Vegas, did folks from New Jersey say, hey, bring me out, what's going on?
Oh, yeah, that happened quite a bit. As a matter of fact, like I mentioned it to you, but when I was a kid, all through high school, I had a band with Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
He was my guitar player. And, boy, we played all over New Jersey area. We had a great band. And it's actually through Joe Pesci was the guy that introduced me to Joey D. And that's how I got on the Joey D band back there. And wound up working in the Peppermint Lounge on 45th Street. And at the same time, I was going to Manhattan School of Music. And then when the recording came out and everything got big, I just had to quit school and went on the road with Joey, and we were the first integrated rock and roll band, and I was the first B3 player, white B3 player, to be playing rock and roll and traveling around. We traveled around the country with the Joey D band before the Civil Rights Act, and we had 3 white gentlemen and 3 black gentlemen, and I can write a book about the things that happened to us on those tours.
You've shared some of that with me informally, I can imagine. Hey, yeah, and I hope that Joey D and the Starlighters and all you guys get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Why not, Bill? Why not?
Oh, I don't know why not. Joey certainly deserves it because he's been he's one of the pioneers of bringing together R&B and rock and roll. With the group that we had back in those days, and it continues. He's out there today. He's still working, and it's amazing. He's probably one of the only ones left, that continues to promote the music that he started back in the 50s.
Yeah. Bill, the great Louis Jordan had his band play the same tunes every night the same way, and his philosophy was the people bought the record and they want to hear the tune the way they heard it on the record, so don't deviate from that. In fact, he was upset with his musicians who improvised. What was the thinking back in Vegas in those early days? Did you have to play the same stuff every night the same way?
Well, it's funny, being a keyboard player, you have a little more liberal. You could take advantage of the situation and improvise more than somebody who's on a horn reading a chart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was able to use my imagination probably a little better than most other instruments because of that. But strictly speaking, when I was working, I worked just about every star you ever heard of that's come through Vegas back in those days, and they played it the exact same way every night, and there was no deviation at all.
Well, we all know the success of the Peppermint Twist from Joey D and the Starlighters, but while Bill was with Joey D, I think that was the Roulette record label, he was asked to come in on some other sessions. Listen to him here on King Curtis's Soul Twist. That's Bill Callanan on the organ. Bill Callanan with us here in the Doodlin Lounge. Hey, Bill, listen, I want to go back and ask you more questions about New Jersey, really the crucible, the hotbed for jazz organ, Newark and Philadelphia and Harlem, I suppose. You worked with the best. Eddie Gladden was a drummer of yours. I mean, you hung with Larry Young. You were right in the thick of it all. Now, that stuff doesn't rub off. I'm sure that, like when you get back with Vinny, you just fall right back into that sound.
Oh, exactly. I've been one of the most fortunate guys in the world because I grew up in the mecca of organs, and all the players were back there. Jack McDuff and Jimmy McGriff and Don Patterson used to come through town all the time. And I knew Larry Young from high school. Larry went to Arts High School in Newark. Him and Eddie Gladden and Woody Shaw, Tyrone Washington, and then Wayne Shorter was like 4 or 5 grades ahead of us.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to hang out with those guys when I was a kid. And then Larry, when he was playing in Newark with his friends down there, he would invite me up to play. And basically, he would let me play because it was a jam session day, and then some guy would come up and they'd do Oleo for 25 minutes, and Larry didn't want to do that, so he would invite me up to play, and that's basically how I learned how to play the organ.
What'd you think of Larry when he went outside?
He was amazing. He was different than any other organ player that I ever heard.
Yeah.
And he had a totally different concept and new that I never heard before. And borderline, he was a genius. I think in a way, what he did was different. He was like, to me, he was like Thelonious Monk on the organ.
Yeah. And, you think about the history of Newark and the sounds that came from that area. There's Rhoda Scott. There's you. You can count them on one hand, the folks that are still yet. Buddy Terry. That era is just slipping between our fingers, man. I know the young kids today, the players today, they have total respect for it. But a lot of them are leaving the tradition set by Jimmy Smith, and they're going off into their own ways. They're keyboard players, Bill. Yeah.
All I could say is I was so fortunate to be exposed to all these people, and there were so many clubs in Newark. They had the Front Room, you had the Playbill Lounge, the Cadillac Club, the Key Club,
Sparky's.
It just went on, and you could go from one place to the other, and there'd be an organ trio or a quartet playing in each one of them, and some of these folks wound up being legendary,
Yeah. Well, there's been a revival of the instrument itself and a whole new wave and generation. I mean, even Joey DeFrancesco now has disciples, and those folks are spreading the word to even younger people. You never know. I see it all as positive. I don't see the death of the Hammond B3 combo. I just see a transformation and a change, that's all.
No doubt. And again, I think Joey DeFrancesco is the reason for all of this. He kind of reinvented the B3 for everybody, and all the accolades that he gets, he really deserves. Yeah.
And his dad, too. I know you and Papa John hang once in a while.
Oh, yeah. Papa John is one of my favorite people, him and his beautiful wife. And I sure look forward to playing with him again. I'd like to put together a little mini organ summit with just me and him playing,
Yeah.
And I'm working on it, and we might just do something like that.
All that's possible. The hard part is getting the folks to come out. It just seems like there's a new era with the technology and the media that we have. People want to stay home. Going to a lounge and feeling that, it's in your blood, Bill Callanan. Standing in the back of the room and seeing people's heads bobbing up and down and fingers popping.
There you go.
I don't know if that's going to come back.
I don't know, but I keep telling my wife that I would, if I had my way, I can't leave Las Vegas because my family's here. But if they weren't, I would be back in New Jersey right now, playing in some little dive for nothing. I could care less about the money, just to play. You know what I mean? And that would be the best thing I could do in my life.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you have instruments at the house?
I have a Hammond Suzuki B3, the new one. And I also have a Hammond organ that I bought. My dad bought me back in 1960 at the Griffith Piano Company in Newark, New Jersey. And that organ is back in New Jersey at my nephew's house. And so when I go back there, I'm fortunate enough to have a B3 handy for me anytime I want to play it.
And a couple of Leslies?
I've got two Leslies. I got a 122R, and I've got an old 900.
Wow.
And I use the 900 because it's tubeless. And I also, on the organ, I took all the tubes out. I put that Shrek preamp in it because when you're moving stuff around with the tubes wind up getting bashed in or whatever, jumping up and down on them, and you can have a lot of problems with that.
Oh, there's no question about it. Yeah, they need some TLC as well. Listen, we're going to spend the rest of this hour listening to your great music, Bill Callanan, and thanking you for recording this. I hope there's some more stuff maybe in the can or maybe in your mind that you want to put out.
We're doing that right now. I'm working on it. I'm writing profusely. That's all I do is write arrangements, and hopefully by this spring or this summer I could come up with something else.
Yeah.
And you'll be the first to hear it.
Hey, continued success in Las Vegas, and when you go home, show them how it's done, Bill.
All right, Pete. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you calling me.
All right, we are going to bring up When Johnny Comes Marching Home as our signature piece from Bill and the Fellas. Vinnie Correo, Jerry Weldon, and Paul Testa, thank you so much, Bill Callanan, for being a guest here on my Doodlin Lounge. Pete Fallico, your host and master of ceremonies, saying, go forth and do good.